Hi guys, today we'll have a look at a one-point perspective drawing that I take a little bit further than the previous one. I'm starting out with doing some warm-up sketches, getting my hand used to drawing circles and ellipses as they'll be appearing in the one-point perspective drawing that I make. Also good practice for the hand doing these horizontal strokes all in one pass. I start out very sloppy, they're not very clean, but this second attempt they're much nicer, much sharper and much straighter. So it's good to get the bad lines out of the way at the start so that when you come round to doing your final drawings, they look nice and clean. And just doing some practice boxes here and finishing off with a few more circles. And as you can see, by the time I'm nearing the end of the warm-up, they're looking a little bit cleaner. They've got less overshooting of the line. They're tightening up a little bit. So creating the horizon line and the center line with the ruler, and then from the vanishing point, which is the intersection of the horizon line and the center line, making a grid to then lay my objects onto. And they're showing where the objects are receding back. So this box that I'm putting down at the moment, I'm imagining that the end of the box is receding back to that vanishing point, and then duplicating that box on the same plane, and how I'm trying to emphasize how it's shrinking with space as that's going closer to that vanishing point. So all of these objects that I'm putting down, I'm looking to emphasize the amount of change in the size of the object as it gets closer to that vanishing point. I want to emphasize that illusion so that this drawing looks as 3D as possible. And working on my cylinder here on the left hand side, making the ellipse and then building up from that, where you create the base of the shape and then project up from the edges of the ellipse. All the while using an HB pencil so that it shows up a little bit better on camera, but usually would be using a 2H pencil since that's nice and light and wouldn't be damaging the paper too much and wouldn't be adding too much lead to it, so that we can erase it and then draw over the top of it with a HB or even a pen if you'd like. So working on adding in another cylinder and thinking a little bit about the light source, trying to establish an interesting overall composition first, and then thinking about how those objects would be interacting with the light source. So giving each plane a different amount of shading. So the underside of those boxes up the top would be getting the most, and then the car shadows would be about in line with those, or maybe a bit darker. And then putting down a sphere in the center, and the sphere in this one-point perspective will always just be a ball, so it's always just a circle. And then it's just a matter of breaking down the wireframe of it so that it fits in the same grid as the other shapes, the other boxes that were put down. So about now I'll get into erasing. So I've just erased all of the lines, and then come back in now whilst I can still see some of them with my lightest grey. So I'm using a C2 Copic marker here. And this stage is all just about mapping out where shadows are forming. So really it's just colouring in, I'm just colouring in boxes basically, where I fill out the edge of the shape and then work inside of that. So I've got a nice clean line at the edge. And the sphere is a little bit more difficult than working on the other shapes, but I'm just following those ellipses that I drew through the sphere before. And I'm only using the chisel tip of the Copic. When I want a more detailed line like I am now on that cylinder, I just turn it on its edge and I use the very tip of that marker instead of the flat edge. I find that I don't need to use the other nib on the Copic markers at all. I tend to just use that flat chisel tip edge and then use the point of it for adding the details in. Just cleaning up a few of the the edges of those areas of shade that I put down. I'm looking to make these cylinders look like a metallic surface, whether it's stainless steel or chrome. That would just cause the surface to be more reflective. So leaving more white areas in the object as it turns around. So putting down marker, doing one coat and then going over again with the same color helps to fill in some of those areas of grain or strokes that you see. And going back in with a slightly darker C5 now. So using the lightest grey first, building up a couple of coats, and then going back over the top of it just a little bit with the C5 to add some of the cast shadow and just a little bit of the dark areas. And then I cut back in now with I think a 4B graphite pencil for filling in the cast shadows and the undersides of the objects a little bit more, and putting in a little bit more contrast into these metallic surfaces of these cylinders. So you don't have to just use the Copics. I like balancing them out with some other things to help tighten up those areas of shade and fill in some almost like blending the Copics into one another a little bit. And you can go back into these shapes or these areas where I've added the graphite, and you can pick up that graphite with the Copic. So if you are looking to darken something, you don't have to just do it with the Copics. You can pick up a lot of the graphite that you put down with the Copic marker. It's still cleaning up a little bit, and yeah, it's coming towards completion. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.